Hey, thank you for joining me at Delete Tech. I have a few different keyboards that I'd like to look at today. They're all within the same family, same brand, but very different, honestly, in experience as you actually use them. We're looking at the G915 from Logitech. I've got three different ones to show you. I've got they all look the same, of course, but the switches are different for each and every one of them. So we have the clicky switch, the tactile switch, and the linear switch. For those that aren't very familiar with the different switches that are out there are typically three different ones. Those are the ones that I just kind of read out to you: the clicky, tactile, and linear. Those are at least the most that you'll hear. One of the most popular form of switches that you have heard of are probably the cherry or cherry-like switches. And like Corsair, for instance, they're one of the brands that has the mainly uses the cherry switches. You'll even hear from them that they have the MX Speed cherry switches, which that just means that it takes less force to press the switch, but it's still a linear switch. But I will say some other manufacturers have their own proprietary switches that they've created. Logitech is one of those, and Razer has some of those as well. And they they definitely have the same type of idea to them. They're just again, with it being a different manufacturer, there's just slightly different feels to them, and that whether you like it or not, that is a completely subjective thing to you. So let me just kind of go through here, though. I'd like to at least let you know what these are like, what my experience was like, what my opinions are, and you can kind of make your decision from there as far as what you feel like you're going to enjoy the most. So let's get started. Which switch is the best? There's no right answer here. Each person will have a completely different opinion as far as what they think is the best and what they like. Each switch has their own characteristics, and especially if you get into the custom keyboard world, then there's so many different switch manufacturers out there that will have different actuation points, different pressure sensitivities as far as like how much pressure it takes to actually push down the switch itself. It's kind of crazy. So the actuation point, if you don't know what that is just the moment where the keyboard sends the signal to your computer that that switch has been pressed. So a lot of times that moment is not hitting the very bottom of the press. It's somewhere in between there. So again, that's the actuation point. If you hear me say that. As far as any other kind of technical or other specs, as far as like what comes with the keyboard, you'll receive the Lightspeed wireless dongle, and that's just a little USB-A connection. I actually can show you that here. It's just this little guy that will plug into your computer, and you will be able to utilize their Lightspeed technology. It does also connect via Bluetooth, but I would say I experienced a little bit of latency. It's not perfect, but it is something in case you want to set it up to a secondary computer or laptop that's not your main, and that'll just make it easy for you to go ahead and connect to it anytime that you need to. And then there's also a game button on here that allows, and what that does is it primarily will disable like the Windows key and the function keys just to make sure that you don't hit that while playing your game, and it brings up extra windows that you don't want. And then there's a cable that does come with this for like a hardware connection. That is 6 feet long. So for me, that was perfectly enough to be able to connect to my computer. But do keep that in mind if you are, because again, you will need to charge this thing because it is a wireless keyboard, at least the G915. There is a physical, just a straight physical connection one that's not wireless. But I personally really liked the idea of the wireless one to keep my setup as clean as possible. And I will say, between the hardware connection and the light speed connection, I could not tell a difference. I couldn't tell any kind of latency problems or anything. It was actually a really great experience. So let's get on to my actual opinion on these different keyboards. Let's look at the clicky version first. Let me go ahead and play a little, just kind of click some of these keys for you so you can get an idea. It definitely has a bright, clicky sound as you press it. And it's definitely the loudest keyboard out of the three versions that I have to show you today. The satisfying thing about this one, though, is just that clack feeling, the actual like tactile feedback that you feel with your fingers is very satisfying. I really like that feeling. It lets me know, like, I know that I press that key type of a feeling when using this version of the keyboard, which is really nice. I personally really like it, whether I'm playing MOBAs or first-person shooters, or when I'm just typing something up. It is just a very satisfying experience. They do have a great responsiveness to the Switch. It has a good like little spring. It at least feels like that. It has a nice little spring back. But my biggest concern in this, and you may have the same, is okay, with it being so loud, is this going to become distracting? Is this going to come through my headphones? So I have open back headphones. Is this going to become a problem to where I can just I constantly hear it clacking in the background as I'm playing my games or something like that? And I will say, at least for me, I've become more used to it over time versus it becoming more annoying. So I personally had no problem with it when I started up a game and I was playing. The sound was just more of a background thing, and it didn't bother me. It didn't really stand out, didn't pierce through the different effects and sounds in the game. So it didn't bother me, but it could bother you. So keep that in mind. If I were over picky about this Switch, I would say I would just want it to be the smallest amount quieter and softer, audibly. But overall, I'm getting more used to it, and it's not really that much of a problem for me. But I think it would be perfect if it was just a little bit quieter. Now let's move on to the brown. So what's interesting about the brown is it's your tactile switch that they have, and this one, as you can hear, it's not that loud. It has a little bit of a bump to it. That's the best way that I can describe it, as a little bit of a bump as you press it. And I'm unfortunately not going to have that many nice things to say about this keyboard. I honestly had the highest hopes going into it that this was going to be my favorite out of all of them. I wanted that little bit of an in-between with the clicky and a linear, to where like it has like just a nice tactile feeling to it as I press the key, but it's not very loud. But I didn't really get it with this. As I started to use this and as I started to type on it, game on it, it honestly just kind of felt like a normal membrane keyboard that you could get from a bottom line Logitech line that's like maybe $20 or so. And they may be more expensive than that, I'm not sure, but like it just does not feel quality to me when I'm pressing these switches. And this can be like a $200 to $250 keyboard. So for me, I don't want to pay that much for this kind of experience if that's the way that I perceive the feeling of pressing these switches. I feel like the way that these are designed, it's just more of a mushy experience that you get at the end of the day, versus a real nice tactile, satisfying, uh, feeling as you press it. Just feels like there's just like something there that shouldn't be. Just makes it mushy. I don't know really how else to put it. So yeah, that is the tactile brown. Next we have, and last we have the linear switch. So at the end of the day, this actually is a pretty nice experience. Let me go ahead and press some of these keys for you so you know how it sounds. So the linear switch, how do I put it? So linear basically just means that there's no resistance. So where the clicky one, you have that bright and sound, and you also have a very like punchy tactile feeling as you press the key. Tactile, you heard me just describe it. There's a little bit of a bump there, but that's about it. There's no resistance at all. So you just press it and it just bottoms out. Some people like that, some people don't. I actually came from a linear keyboard and that just started having issues, and so that's why I'm in the market for looking for a new keyboard. And these are actually pretty good. These feel easier to press, and a lot of people say that this is the best for like a first-person shooter, linear switches, just because again there's no type of resistance and just gives you a nice fluid feeling as you're pressing the switch. But the key press itself has a decent feedback. Once you reach the bottom of the keystroke, it does make it pretty satisfying for both typing and gaming. I didn't really have too many complaints with this. But I will say this does bring me to a satisfying point that I'd like to make about this keyboard. So a lot of gaming keyboards out there, as you press the key, it gives a very hollow sound. So like the G915 across the board, no matter what switch you're getting, it's a very dense keyboard, and I didn't really have the hollow sound that I would typically get out of like a Corsair or a Razer keyboard. Those are definitely seem to be much more of a hollow chassis. And so as I press it, I don't hear a big thunk, thunk. Like, there's typically a bit of an echo as you hit the different switches that really does bother me over time. And again, it just kind of makes it feel more cheap. I think Logitech has done a great job with these to where it feels very solid as you type on it. No bend at all as you're pressing it, and then again, there's no hollow sound at all when you're pressing it. The stabilizers feel really great, which is typically a problem with these gaming mechanical keyboards as well. But I think overall, just the chassis itself is very well built, and the stabilizers are really good. And I actually really enjoy this keyboard because of that. And I can't say that about any other gaming keyboards out there. I think the rest of them are just not quite there. So what do I recommend? Typically what people say as far as like what switch is best for whatever what use case scenario you're in, people say that the clicky switch is best for typing. The tactile browns are good for like MOBAs and strategy games, just because you get a little bit of that indication that you've pressed that button. And then the linear first-person shooters. But I'm actually here to say that after using all these, my favorite has become the clicky switch. I think overall it's the best one out there. I think it has a really great experience overall. I love it. I play MOBAs, I play first person shooters, I play some strategy games, and just overall this is best for everything. It's best for work, it's best for games, and I've been very happy with this keyboard. And I don't know if you're a big linear switch fan, I would say go with the linear. I'm kind of more on the fence. I wasn't, completely sold to the linear world to where I knew like I had to have that same type of switch. And but I will say like the linear keyboard is very good. So if you're a fan of linear switches, I think it's worth a shot. I think you should pick one up because it is a really solid keyboard and it's a close second. Like if this clicky switch, the sound was more piercing and came through my headphones more when I was playing, and it was more distracting than it was satisfying. I would 100% be going with the linear because I actually really like this keyboard as well. So there you have it. I hope this was helpful and informative for you. I highly recommend the clicky. If not, I would highly recommend the linear switch if you're into those. These are, again, great keyboards. Yes, they're a little bit expensive, but if you're looking at the higher end of mechanical gaming keyboards, I don't think you can go wrong with this. Again, I think the biggest thing is it's just very, very well built. And I think because of the density of the chassis itself, it is very worth the price versus what you would get with like with some of the Corsair products and Razer products. Again, not saying that those are bad products. I don't know. There's something about that more hollow chassis that does bother me personally over time. So there you have it, the Logitech G915 wireless. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below. I'd be happy to help and give anybody any kind of extra advice if you would like it. And hope you have a great day. Thanks. Bye.